Okay, I just wanted to go over the things that you need to know for your quiz tomorrow. It is a quiz on 4.4 and 4.5. I'm going to give you more examples than you'll actually have, but at least it should help you do your homework. You're going to need to know how to find the amplitude, the period, the phase shift, and the center line from given equations. You're going to use transformation language. In other words, reflections. Does it reflect across the x or y axis? What's the vertical stretch or shrink? That's related to the amplitude. You're also going to need to know horizontal stretches and shrinks, which is the b in your equation. It affects the period. Your phase shift is your left and right moves, and your center line, which is your up and down moves, or your vertical translations. You're now going to know how to graph sinusoids. Typically, this is the form that we're going to use. Identify your max and min y values and where they occur. Identify your zeros and where they occur. Graph tangents, and know what the reciprocal graph looks like. I am not going to have you graph the reciprocals, but you should become familiar with those. Okay, example 1 says we're going to find the amplitude and use any kinds of transformation language. The amplitude is this value here. So our amplitude is always a absolute value, so it's going to be, the amplitude is 4, which means it vertically stretched by 4. And this negative says that it reflects across the x-axis. Across x-axis. So those are typical kinds of problems that we're going to do. This next one says to find the period and use transformation language. So as you look here, this is a vertical stretch by 3. The 2 is a horizontal shrink by 1/2. And if I'm going to look for the period, remember, the period is affected by the b value. Look at the period. Here's my b value. So your period is equal to 2 pi, because that is the normal period of a cosine, divided by my b value, which is 2. So these cancel, and my period is pi. All right, let's look at example 3. In this one, we're going to find the amplitude and the period, the frequency, and then we're going to sketch it in a negative 3 pi to 3 pi window and a negative 4 to 4 window. We're not going to use our calculators. We're going to sketch it by hand. So the amplitude is 3. This is A. My b value is 1/2. That's this value here. So that means that my period is 2 pi divided by 1/2, which is 4 pi. Now my frequency is just the reciprocal. So my frequency is 1 over 4 pi. That means it makes one complete cycle in 4 pi units. So now let's see, we have everything we need. I'm going to draw a sine wave and then scale it. And I have to have it in a negative 3 pi to 3 pi window. So I'm going to try and get my sine wave. It goes like this, like this. Okay, hopefully I've put enough space. The center is here. It didn't get moved, so this is my y-axis. Didn't go up, and it didn't shift right or left. Here is 3, which means down here is negative 3. So here's my positive 4, and here is my negative 4. And it says it does this in one complete cycle, which happens to be, from here to here, is 4 pi. Okay, so that means half of that is 2 pi, half of that is 3 pi. Which means, over here, this peak is reached at pi. Now my problem is I have to go to negative 3 pi, so I'm going to come back over here, go around. Here is 2 pi. This here is negative 4 pi, which means here is negative 3 pi. So that's my complete graph. If I'm looking at this window here, then I really only need to show this part of it. Okay? And this peak is really here. It is a rough sketch. It does not need to be to scale, but that is what you would do. You just draw the basic and scale your axes accordingly. Here's another example. We only need to graph one period, a sine wave. My B equals 1, my A is 2.5. So my period is going to be 2 pi over 1, which is 2 pi. This is my amplitude. So it vertically stretched by 2.5. Vertical stretch. And I only have to graph one period. So I'm going to draw my sine wave, 1. And I'm going to put my axes here, because the sine wave always starts at 0, 0. My max is 2.5. My min is negative 2.5. And this is 2 pi, 3 pi over 2, pi, and pi over 2. And I've graphed one period. Now this one says I need to graph 3 periods and then scale it. So my A is 3, my B is 1/2. So if I'm looking at my period, it is going to be 2 pi, which sine and cosine always have a period of 2 pi, divided by 1/2, which ends up being 4 pi. Now your cosine does not start at 0. Okay? Your cosine starts at 1. This got stretched to 3. So what I'm going to do is start it up here. And I'm going to come down and up. There's 1 cycle. And then I got to come down and up. There's 2 cycles. And then I'm going to come down and up. And there's 3 cycles. And they asked me to graph 3 periods. It does not shift. There's no H and no K, so it doesn't shift right or left or up and down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the center through here, and I'm going to put my axes here since it didn't shift. This is now a 3. This is a minus 3. Since one period is 4 pi, this will be 4 pi. And if I add another 4 pi, this would be 8 pi. If I add another 4 pi, this would be 12 pi. So what I have here are 3 periods. A period is one complete cycle from peak to peak. This would be a horizontal stretch by 2. And so it actually takes this and stretches it across. All right, we're going to identify the max and mins and the zeros in the interval from negative 2 pi to 2 pi. Now this is a regular sine wave. My B is 1, so my period is just 2 pi. So I'm going to take my sine wave, start it down here, and I'm going to go this direction, and I'm going to go okay, and I'm going to draw my scale here because I have to go negative 2 pi to 2 pi. That means here is 2 pi, and this is pi, and pi over 2, and half of that is 3 pi over 2. The max is 1/2, the min is negative 1/2. Again, negative pi over 2, negative pi, negative 3 pi over 2, and negative 2 pi. So my maximums occur, max of 1/2 occurs at negative 3 pi over 2 and pi over 2. Min of negative 1/2 occurs at 3 pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. My zeros they occur here, 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 and here. So the zeros are at negative 2 pi, negative pi, 0, pi, and 2 pi. All right, example 7 says to describe the transformations. Well, right here, this is my amplitude. A equals 3/4. It is less than 1, so it's a vertical shrink by 3/4. There's no up and down, there's no right and left. And the B value is 1/5. So it is a horizontal stretch by 5. We take the reciprocal. So that's how you're going to describe those transformations. Typical problem that you could have on the quiz. You're going to state the amplitude, the period, the phase shift, the center line. So right away I look at this and my A is 5. So that's my amplitude. I'm not going to touch this right now, but I am going to look over here. This is my K value. It equals 0.5, so it went up 0.5. Now I'm going to factor this out. And I don't know what this number is going to be. So what I'm going to do is just use algebra. I'm going to come over here and say 3 times something gives me a pi over 6. So I divide by 3 or multiply by 1/3. And so that means this is pi over 18. So I'm going to write pi over 18. Now what that means is that my B value is 5, so my period, not 5, 3, it's right there. So my period is 2 pi divided by 3. My H is pi over 18, which means I went to the right pi over 18. I think I have everything. Now I have my A, my B, my H, and my K. So now, how am I going to graph this? I'm not asking to graph it right now, but if we had to, we would know we vertically stretched by 5. We horizontally shrunk by 1/3. We went to the right by pi over 18, and we went up 0.5. And if we had to graph this, we know this is a cosine graph, so it kind of looks like this. And I know that I went to, I'm going to put the center through here. The center is 0.5. My amplitude is 5. So I'm going to go up to here, it's 5.5. And then this would be 0.5 minus 5, which I think is negative 4.5. So this is negative 4.5. And I went to the right, so this peak right here is pi over 18. So I've covered this one, I've covered this one, I've covered this one. So now I need to go over to here. And notice my period is 2 pi over 3. So I'm just going to take pi over 18, and I went to the right, 2 pi over 3, which means pi over 18, multiply this by 6 over 6,